Good afternoon. Happy Saturday. You're listening to the Ask Dr. Ernst show right here on Fox Sports Charlotte. And this show exists so that you can discover how to heal yourself. Look, the original word doctor in Latin means to teach. So why don't we take a moment this hour and teach you some of the most powerful things that you can do to heal yourself. My name is Dr. Ernst. I am a doctor of functional medicine, doctor of chiropractic. I have a doctorate in natural medicine and in something called humanitarian services. Basically, what I can do is coach you in the process of doing the necessary steps for you to find the underlying root cause of your health conditions and fix it. But here's the kicker, not using conventional medicine. We're talking all natural techniques, things that have been around since the beginning of time and are backed by science, backed by research. Our topic of the day is dysbiosis, this fancy term that is becoming so much more popular today, especially in the world of functional medicine, about how your gut, and more specifically, the bacteria in your gut, help you to either heal or they create disease. So here's a fun fact. Did you know that by volume, you are more bacteria than human? They estimate that there's about 70 trillion human cells. Sorry, I had to move my mic a little bit. 70 trillion human cells and roughly 300 trillion bacteria cells in and on your body. So by volume, you are more bacteria than human. And the majority of these bacteria, known as your gut flora, or the flora of your intestines, or the bacteria, are the bacteria and the microbiome, the organisms that make up the majority of your immune system. Technically, it's called the gut-assisted lymphoid tissue, or your GALT, G-A-L-T, but that system is now known to be mostly your immune system. Some researchers say 70%, some will say 80%, some will say 75%. Obviously, you can see the majority of your immune system is in your intestines. And the word dysbiosis is when you have a relationship change. Too much bad bacteria, not enough good bacteria, or an overgrowth of other types of living entities. Fungus, parasites, protozoa, yeasts. And when they take over, you're now in something called dysbiosis. There are more than one types of dysbiosis. Some people can have too much bacteria in their digestive system. Others might not have enough. Some have too much yeast. Some have too many viruses. So just know the term dysbiosis is a global phrase to say the living bacteria, parasites, fungus, yeast, all this stuff that's in your intestines are out of balance. And there's a large body of evidence that shows that you have, in essence, more bacteria on you and in you than you are of human. And now they're even starting to suggest that those bacteria represent genetic transcriptions in your body. Now, that's a fancy term to say basically this. If you've been told you have a genetic disorder, like some sort of a condition that is a result of bad genes and bad luck and bad lifestyle, well, actually, it's not your genes, it's the expression of the bacteria genes. And most specifically, because we're still in the theme of diabetes, we're going to connect the dots today between a dysbiosis causing diabetes. So you heard that right. If you have type 1, 2, or 3 diabetes, it could be dysbiosis as a cause. Hey, also, just so you guys know, we had to move the webinar date due to a personal conflict. So it originally was supposed to be on the 10th of September. Well, I'm moving it to the 17th, which is just the following Saturday. So the good news for you is, hey, if you missed the registrations last week and the week before, well, it's now open. And we're extending the webinar to 500 in attendance. Right now, we're at about 290 people confirmed. That, of course, was for the 10th. All of you who have previously called in and gotten the ebooks and been on our webinar series, you are shifted immediately to the 17th for free. And if you're going, I haven't heard about this, We're giving away a book called Diabetes Heal Thyself, a functional guide to reversing type 1, 2, and 3. It is an electronic book. Last week, we had some people saying, hey, you can mail that straight to my home address. And we went, we'll just take your email address. So it's Diabetes Heal Thyself, a complete guide to reversing type 1, 2, and 3 diabetes, written by myself, Dr. Ernst, my lead associate, Dr. Chris Demzar. And inside this book, guys, is everything you need if you or a loved one struggles with diabetes. How do you get the ebook? Simple. Call this number, 704-906-2094. That's 704-906-2094. Or if you're tech savvy, pick up your phone and dial 704-906-2094 in your text app and send your name and your email, and you get instant access to the ebook, boom, straight to your email, and you get the webinar, which is on now the 17th of September, and it's on diabetes and destroying this. Okay, the number again is 704-906-2094. Hey, it's your health hour, so let's dive deep into this. Dysbiosis is caused by changing the relationship of the bacteria in your intestines. And unfortunately, it tends to have a snowball effect where as lesser amounts of the healthy microbes are present, more amounts of the opportunistic, I'll call them organisms, can take over. So as your bacteria levels go down in your intestines, well, the viral levels goes up, the fungal levels go up, the protozoa levels go up. And we have to ask this question, what would naturally lower the bacteria in our intestines? What would kill bacteria off? Well, the only thing I can think that you would be doing unwillingly is exposing yourself to pesticides, herbicides, fungicides, bactericides through the foods you eat. So can processed foods lower your healthy bacteria? Yes. Can chemicals and toxins, glyphosate, which is a very heavily sprayed chemical onto a lot of food products, lower the bacteria? Yes. Some of the most common, though, is you taking an antibiotic. I mean, think about it. An antibiotic kills bacteria. You have healthy bacteria in your intestines as well. So if you lower your healthy bacteria levels, then boom. Now, I know what you're thinking. Well, Dr. Ernst, listen, I have not swallowed a prescriptive antibiotic in 10 years. Good for you, but you may be eating them because antibiotic use in food production today is very high. They're no longer using hormones for chickens and cows. So, I mean, I'm sure you guys have noticed when you go and buy a piece of chicken, hormone free. Sometimes they'll even say, vegetarian fed. Well, that doesn't necessarily mean that they're not taking prescriptive farm drugs. I hate to say this, but antibiotic use is becoming a big deal in farm animals and livestock. Sometimes if you're lucky, you'll find it'll say antibiotic-free chicken or antibiotic-free turkey or beef. So obviously we want to make sure we're staying away from the medication. And by the way, most people take an antibiotic because they have a cold. And what's interesting is about 80% of colds are viral. So unless you're actually getting swabbed to have a culture grown to confirm that it is bacteria, you're just taking an antibiotic because your doctor says, well, take this. So the challenge is antibiotics make you feel better, but they do nothing to solve the underlying root cause if it's a viral infection. And what they do is they destroy your bacteria, creating dysbiosis. We talked about how an unhealthy diet, very low in nutrients, low in fiber, and containing a lot of harmful toxic substances can kill the bacteria in your intestines. Alcohol use. So if you're a drinker who, enjoys a glass of wine every day, and you might have a cocktail every third day of the month or whatever, alcohol is a challenge. We do know that various medications for blood pressure and cholesterol and thyroid and diabetes can actually destroy the bacteria in your intestines. And listen, life in general can destroy the bacteria in your intestines. So what causes dysbiosis? Being alive, taking medications, eating standard American foods, and unfortunately, just life. There was a study published in the Journal of Nutritional Neuroscience which says this, ready? The vicious cycle between an immune system impairment and increasing dysbiosis that leads to a leaky gut creates neurochemical compounds known as neurotoxic xenobiotics, which are both produced and absorbed inside the intestine. Now, that was one heavy statement, was it not? So let's translate this into American. It basically says, if you consume antibiotics, heavily processed foods, chemicals, the bacteria in your intestines may actually become altered such that they produce their own version of an antibiotic and neurotoxins, which makes for a self-absorption of this stuff. So when you destroy your microbiome and you create dysbiosis, that cascade effects creates more dysbiosis because the bacteria themselves now start to kill themselves. So we're going to talk about this idea that is there evidence that this condition called dysbiosis is actually causing type 1 or type 2 diabetes. And what's crazy is there is tremendous amounts of evidence. New research is suggesting that blood sugar can increase if you have intestinal permeability. And that might sound like a strange word, but the way medicine defines dysbiosis is as the phrase increased intestinal permeability, meaning the gut is physically leaking. This alters the microbiome, which can cause a risk for increased infections. And there's even evidence to show it causes autoimmune disease, which is where the body attacks itself. Let me show you something here. One study found elevated glucose levels alters the intestinal barrier such that it increases the likelihood of an infection and inflammation by non-bacterial sources. What they're saying is diabetes can create dysbiosis, but then the dysbiosis aggravates the diabetes and creates a cascade. So this research says there's a flowing effect. When you're a diabetic, you damage the intestines. The damage to the intestines make the diabetes worse. Another study found out that leaky gut and increased intestinal permeability precedes the diagnosis of type 2 diabetes. It's also been found that it may be a precursor to pre-diabetes, which means if you have dysbiosis, which is an inappropriate relationship of bacteria in your intestines, it could actually cause pre-diabetes to be present, which is subtle elevations in blood sugar, subtle elevations in A1C, and that high sugar diets create the intestinal damage in the first place, but your medical professions say you have pre-diabetes. Your functional physicians say, whoa, the sugars are not the cause. They're damaging your intestines. They're causing dysbiosis, and that is creating the pre-diabetes. And if we can control your diet and we can get your sugar levels down and we can get the intestines to heal and we can reestablish the bacteria, you can break the pre-diabetes and never end up with type 2 diabetes. So the good news is if you're a type 2 diabetic, you just have to stop the cycle, okay? Your elevated blood sugars are causing dysbiosis. The dysbiosis is causing further elevations of your blood sugars, and it's a cascade. And if you're not a diabetic, you just simply need to understand elevated blood sugars cause the dysbiosis, which causes the increased intestinal permeability, which causes leaky gut, which can then make you more likely to have pre-diabetes or type 2 diabetes in your future. So if you're a diabetic, you really need to grab this ebook. Everything I'm talking about today and in our entire series for the last 4 weeks is found in here. It's an incredible book. It's absolutely free. You just need to pick up the phone and call 704-906-2094. The book will be delivered straight to your email address. And then again, you get access to a webinar that I'm hosting, which is on Saturday, September 17th. It's at 10 a.m. and we're going to take you step by step by step by step through how to fix this, how to identify what kind of diabetes you have, how to identify the kind of gut leaks you have, how to repair this, not just with diet, but with the specific process needed to heal the intestines, seal them, and let your body repair itself. The other thing that's very interesting about this is a lot of times what happens is most of us don't realize the things we do or don't do can either help us to be healthier or sicker. And the challenge here is it's this concept of, well, how do I know if I'm doing the right thing? Or how do I know if I even need to make a change? And I'd like to point out for the fact that most people I work with, in our clinic come in late stage illness. And here's what I mean by that. They've already been diagnosed as whatever, type 2 diabetic, high blood pressure, cholesterol, obesity. It could be something autoimmune, more complicated, scleroderma, psoriasis, rheumatoid arthritis, or it could be something very serious, diabetes that's leading to type 3, which we'll talk about possibly next week, and maybe even something like cancer. So we tend to see people physically in late stage, and we run these tests and we find out something like, hey, you also have, an elevation in this section, or you have diabetes, or you have gut leak. And most people will tell us, man, I've never ever connected the dots. I've always kind of lived this separate model for healthcare. And listen, it's not your fault. Today, conventional medicine has fractionated themselves so intensely. You have a cardiologist for heart issues. You have a gastroenterologist for gastric issues, digestive. You have an endocrinologist for hormone issues. You have a neurologist for nerve issues. You have a proctologist for, male issues down there, if you know what I mean. And many people go, well, I didn't know that I could fix all of this if I stopped becoming an ologist. Did you guys get it? All of this, ologist. You can actually heal your body in multitudes of systems when you step back and start looking at, well, what does the body use to heal? How does it repair things naturally by itself? And if we engage those systems, you could technically not just reverse diabetes, but lose 40 pounds in the process. Not just reverse diabetes, but also lower your blood pressure at the same time, and your cholesterol and your triglycerides, and also lose weight. So what's really unique about this concept known as functional medicine is the whole body approach, again, rather than fractionating it out. Because a lot of people will say to me, well, Dr. Ernst, my diabetes doctor or my primary said that I have such and such, and they have me on this regimen of medications. And there's nothing wrong with that if your goal is to simply manage your disease. And again, we've talked about this multiple times. An MD, though it stands for medical doctor, in my opinion, is really a manager of disease. Because if you think about this, if you've been taking a medication for diabetes or high blood pressure, cholesterol, thyroid, whatever, for 5, 10, 15, 20 years, shouldn't it have reversed itself if the fix was the need for medication? But what I've seen is most of you think that you just have to manage it. Well, as long as I take my medications, my numbers are good. So it's like managing debt. As long as I make my payments to my credit card and I hit the minimums, I'm okay. They don't yell at me. They don't scream at me. But meanwhile, your debt is climbing, but you don't really feel it because no one's coming after you yet. But as you exceed some threshold of debt and your payment is minimum, not making any movement, now the calls start coming in going, well, listen, we gave you a year and you made minimum payments, but now it's time to pay the piper. You have $46,000 of debt and you have 1 month to pay it back. Otherwise, we're going to start charging you now 30% interest. Guys, that same analogy happens to your body. The only difference is it's not a tangible dollar amount of debt, and there's no collector who calls you. It's the disease that shows up that's calling you. You're going to have to pay the price of 48 years of eating poorly. You're going to have to pay the price now of 20 years of taking medication. And unless you wake up and realize that you can't just sweep stuff under the rug and forget about it forever, eventually it's going to rear its ugly head. And in the world of healthcare, the ugly head is cancer and very, very progressive conditions, multiple sclerosis, et cetera, et cetera. So what we want to do is hopefully get you to wake up. A diagnosis of type 2 diabetes, that is the debt collector calling, saying pay up now. And unfortunately, if you don't pay up, well, the kidney will shut down. Your eyes can start to lose vision. Your fingers can start to go numb. You can stop feeling your feet. And see, again, you'll think, well, I can just medicate my way out of that. Be very careful paying the debt collector of medicine. You can solve this, you and I together. You need to learn the steps for healing that are natural, course correct the number of years of debt that you've accumulated, clear the debt, and your body can be set free. The challenge is, for many of you, some of you don't know what that debt is. Let's talk about, dysbiosis and diabetes. The first debt that you have paid is this debt of hyperglycemia, elevated blood sugars. I had a type 2 diabetic patient come in last week off one of our webinars asking for help. And, he said, look, my sugars are normally 220 and, my doctors are unhappy. So they've elevated my medications again and it's still not coming down. So they want me to take now. And he pulls this bottle out, insulin. And he's like, I'll do it if I have to, but I really don't want to. But what else can I do? I have to get my sugars down. And I said to him, well, what would be the goal that you want your sugars at? And he's like, look, if I can get into the hundreds, 110, 120, even 140, I'd be happy. And it's kind of like, so you have $40,000 worth of credit card debt and you'd be happy with $20,000. That's better, but you're still in debt. Okay, so normal blood sugars, just so you guys know, need to be well under 100 when fasting, waking up in the morning by yourself, unassisted, without taking medications. And so he told me, I haven't seen a number under 100 since I can't remember last. Don't know. Can't even remember it. And I was like, well, here's what we're going to do. We're going to do 3 things today that I know naturally lower blood sugars. And I'm going to have you reach out to me in about 4 days and tell me what's going on. And he called last week, 89. First time he's seen this in years. And guys, it's not that hard. We isolate the cause using special lab tests. We discover the interference, again, lab tests. We reverse the damage. We remove the interferences, get the receptors cleaned out, change your diet, fast. Take something that's an alternative to your medication using enzymes and cofactors and let your body live by itself and watch what happens. If you're more interested in what those tests are, they're all in the ebook. Every single test that we offer for a diabetic is in here. How to read all of the tests are in here. How to clear your body is in here. How to do the program by yourself is in here. This is the value of this book. This book should be worth several $1,000s, but it's free today. 704-906-2094. Just call it and chat with my call center. Tell them you want the ebook. They'll just ask for your name and your email. And if you don't want to talk to anybody, simply just pick up your texting system on your phone, open up your chat, and just send it straight over. Your name, your email to 704-906-2094. Now watch this. There are links between diabetes medications and an induction of dysbiosis. Now here's where it gets even crazier. So you were unaware of the fact that dysbiosis causes diabetes. You went to your medical doctor and you discovered you have diabetes. So you've been diagnosed. They gave you a medication to try to control your sugars. But guess what the medication does? It causes a worsening of the original cause of your diabetes. So do you see how perhaps Big Pharma knows this? And this is why they want you to get sucked into this merry-go-round called medications. Metformin presents itself as one of the most sophisticated drugs of all time in regards to how it lowers your blood sugars. But lately, there's been some attention directed to the idea that metformin causes dysbiosis. A delayed release formulation of metformin can be retained in the intestine for up to 2 weeks. The effect that it has of lowering blood sugar is a standard that is being used today. So most people that have type 2 diabetes, they take metformin. It's the classic thing we start with. And then all of a sudden you start seeing your sugars come down. But they discovered that it also hangs out in your intestines for a period of up to 14 days. In diabetic rats, intravenous administration of metformin was found to be less effective at lowering blood sugars than if they gave it as an injection into the abdomen. Now, here's what's unique about this. How is it that a medication, when put into the vein, is less effective than when they put it into the intestines? And it's because what they're finding out is metformin affects the bacteria, and those bacteria help to lower the blood sugar. Human genetic studies have found that there is a variant known as SLC22A1, which actually causes a decrease in the uptake of metformin. And this genetic mutation is something that's only found in the bacteria of your gut. So what they're discovering is the bacteria in your intestines determine if the medication is actually going to work for you or not. And regarding the effects of the actual drug on the bacteria itself, there are studies that show that when you administer metformin, it produces changes in the intestinal microbiome such that it increases the overgrowth of opportunistic bacteria, which is a cause of dysbiosis, and it decreases the production of your healthy bacteria, again causing dysbiosis. As stated before, your gut bacteria is profoundly modified in patients that have type 2 diabetes. They have done studies where they take rats that have type 2 diabetes. They go in and scrape the bacteria out of the colon of the diabetic mouse. They then implant that bacteria into a healthy non-diabetic rat, and instantly that non-diabetic rat becomes a type 2 diabetic. Now here's what's even crazier. The same research studies said, well, what happens if we take the bacteria from a non-diabetic rat and we put it into a diabetic rat and clear the bacteria, change the bacteria using healthy bacteria from the non-diabetic rat, and the diabetic rats became non-diabetic. It was published and it was stated that the administration of a fecal transplant, healthy bacteria from a non-diabetic rat, given to a diabetic rat could be a model therapy for potential diabetic treatments in the future. Now listen to what they're saying. Healthy bacteria from a non-diabetic rat, when physically given in the colon as a surgical procedure where they go in and they actually push the bacteria in there into a diabetic rat, makes the type 2 diabetic rat no longer diabetic. They're proving to you that a healthy microbiome can reverse and prevent type 2 diabetes from forming. Metformin has also been shown to destroy the probiotic relationship within your intestines. There is a specific type of bacteria called bifidobacterium, and the number of the bifidobacterium in your intestines can be counted, and it is one of the most abundant healthy bacteria in your gut. The challenge is that metformin has been shown to physically decrease the bifidobacterium amount and causes an upswing in other styles of bacteria that actually damage the intestines and creates dysbiosis. So in summary, I'm going to read the conclusion of this article. Alterations of intestinal microbiome, which is the bacteria, are key elements in understanding the creation of diabetes and may explain the variability in terms of a therapeutic response to patients. Again, guys, when I read studies, I have to translate this into English. Here's what they're saying. If you can change your bacteria in your intestines to become a healthier relationship, you can reverse diabetes. Here's conclusion number 2. Metformin, which is the most common drug prescribed for someone with type 2 diabetes, exerts a significant influence on the bacteria found in the gut, bringing significant contribution to destroying the intestinal bacteria. So with changes in both the composition and function of the bacteria, type 2 diabetes can be changed. And listen to what it says at the end. There can be better outcomes for diabetic patients who improve the bacteria relationships in their intestines. So what are they saying? Let's listen up to this real quick. They're saying in this study, A, dysbiosis can cause diabetes. B, diabetes can cause dysbiosis. There's that vicious cycle. C, taking metformin makes the dysbiosis worse. D, If you were to elevate specific bacteria, bifidobacterium is one of the biggest ones, Bacillus subtilis is another big one, and create a healthier environment with the bacteria, you could lower your blood sugar naturally, and that the medication metformin only makes your blood sugars come down if you have a healthy microbiome. They also found out that if you were willing to do a fecal transplant with a healthy individual's gut bacteria, boom, your diabetes could clear. And your gut is so toxic if you have type 2 diabetes that if you gave someone your microbiome, you would create a dysbiosis in them and they would develop diabetes. So how do we solve this? Well, number one, we have to recognize it's not a genetic issue that's causing your diabetes. It is more than likely dysbiosis. And to find out how you can very easily at home test your gut to see if it's dysbiotic, boom, right here, guys. We have in the ebook an at-home test you can do to discover if you have dysbiosis. And there's even protocols on how to clear your colon out in the ebook. You just need to grab it. 704-906-2094 is the number to call right now to get the ebook for free and to get on our webinar, which is on Saturday, September 17th, where I will take you step by step through how to read the labs, how to know where to order them from, how to implement the protocols of healing, what are the diets that repair the microbiome, what are the supplements that repair it, and it's all free for you. But you have to take action and get on the registration list. 704-906-2094 is how you can get access. Again, 704-906-2094 is how we get access. So I want to talk first of all about how you can instantly start lowering your blood sugars. And before you tune out saying, oh, Dr. Ernst, I do not have type 2 diabetes. Why do I have to deal with this? Everybody can benefit from lowering their blood sugars. I don't care if you're diagnosed or not. The average American is walking around today in a pre-diabetic diagnostic state without knowing it. Again, waking up in the morning, your sugars should be 70 to 80, maybe 90s tops. I have challenged many of you to do the sugar check, which is simply wake up in the morning, check your sugars, and if it's north of 100, you should say, oh my God, I have pre-diabetes. If it's well north of 140, you most likely have type 2 diabetes. So can you easily find out right now how healthy you are with your sugar controls? Yeah. Go to the local pharmacy, buy a $40 or $50 sugar monitor, prick your finger, put the blood on the strip, and a number shows up in like 6 seconds. I mean, you have to understand how amazing it is to live in the world we live in today, where tests are readily available for you to do over the counter if you have the knowledge. Dr. Ernst, why would I want to buy a sugar monitor? I don't have diabetes. Prove it to me. Prove it to me that you don't. Wake up in the morning, check your sugars. If you're at 70, you're good to go. If you're at 80, you're good to go. If you're at 90, you're good to go. 95, maybe repeat it tomorrow and let's see if it comes down. 105, no, pre-diabetic. 110, no, pre-diabetic. 119, pre-diabetic. 138, about to be type 2 diabetes. 147, type 2 diabetes. 169, type 2 diabetes. Do you guys see? There's just simple thresholds. 70, 80, 90 is healthy. And if you go, well, I don't know why I should have to do this. Just trust me on this, okay? You are paying off a debt that you don't even realize has been climbing. The average American today has elevated sugars, elevated triglycerides, elevated blood pressure, elevated cholesterol. So just wake up and recognize you can either take care of it now or you can wait till you have the diagnosis, which most people don't want to do. So how do we get our sugars to come down super fast? Well, first of all, I hope you would realize the easiest way is just don't eat. The art of fasting is one of the greatest techniques. It's been around since the beginning of time. Let's go back even into the biblical eras. Fasting was used to connect with God. Fasting was used to increase prayer life, and fasting was used to heal. I read this book recently about the biblical art of fasting where they said the average Jewish Christian This would be people who followed, not just Christ, but believed themselves to be of God, fasted 2 days a week. Their original heritage religion said fast 2 days a week. And then you have the Messianic Jewish population who started to do Shabbat fasting, where it would be, from sundown to sunup on a 24-hour cycle, no food at all, 1 day per week. Then you had people who would say, well, listen, man, Jesus fasted for 40 days in the wilderness after getting baptized by the Holy Spirit. That's the longest recorded human fast. Well, true, but before Jesus, Moses did the same thing in the presence of God. He fasted for 40 days on food and water, which I don't recommend, by the way. The scholars who wrote the book said it was only because Moses was physically in the presence of God for 40 days, fed spiritually, given spiritual water, and that's why he was able to do this. Elisha did 40 days of fasting. Paul did 14 days of fasting when he was on one of the boats that hit a major storm. All throughout the Bible, there are moments of fasting, not just for the benefit of getting connected with God, but for the healing powers that come from it. We know that fasting stimulates stem cells. We know that fasting lowers blood sugar. Take a look at Will Smith. If you guys didn't see this, it was about a year or two ago. He got off all of his blood pressure medications after doing about a 6, maybe 5-day water fast that he publicized on his Facebook feeds, on his Instagram channels, and everybody started doing the Will Smith fast. Water for 4 days or 5 days, and blood pressure's going down. He was able to stop his medications completely. Well, how does this happen? When you fast, your sugars go down because they have to. You're not consuming any food. When you fast and you drink only water, you flush toxins out of your liver and out of your kidneys. It cleans your blood out. When you fast, you stimulate your stem cells, which are dormant, waiting for a call to say repair. And the reason this happens is they've discovered when you fast, your white blood cells actually die because they starve. And the drop in white blood cells stimulates a red alert for your immune system to make new white blood cells from stem cells. And those new white blood cells are like trained soldiers. They're very active and they go around and they kill bacteria and they kill viruses because the old white blood cells got lazy. And so you can reboot your immune system in just 72 hours fasting on water. 3 days is not an exorbitant amount of time to go without food, but some of you, that is a hard thing. I've had some patients say, you want me to skip my breakfast? That's a cold day and you know where when I start doing that. Well, guess what, guys? You have to start training your body for this. So the first step to lowering your blood sugars fast is fast. Get it? How to lower them fast? Fast. Okay? And when you fast, make sure that you're doing it in a controlled environment and time. If you've never fasted before in your life, maybe you do the simple sun up to sundown fast. If the sun is up, don't eat. If the sun is down, you can technically eat. Now, that means not at night while you're sleeping, but it means get up early in the morning before the sun rises and have breakfast, and then eat nothing until the sun goes down and have dinner. So you're really only skipping lunch. The simplest and most basic fast is that. Okay, number 2, you could challenge yourself and do a water fast for 24 hours. You could do it for 48 hours. You could do it for 72 hours. You could do it for 5 days if you want. The whole point of this is to understand, let your body have some time to rest. Let your sugars come down. Let the engagement of the natural healing systems inside of you turn on. Because when you give your colon a break, it heals itself. What else heals itself when you give it rest? Well, if you break a bone, you have to cast it so it doesn't move. You have to put it in something to take pressure off of it. And you just wait 7 weeks and all of a sudden, the brand new bone is present. So notice, you rest a joint, you cast it so it doesn't move and it heals. How do we do that for your metabolism? How do we cast your colon? Nothing goes in it. Nothing comes out of it. It's at rest and it will heal. The other thing you can start doing, of course, is you can modify your diet. Look, the standard American diet is sugar, 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 and more sugar on top of more sugar. Everything we eat today is either chemically processed to have artificial sweeteners, artificial, ingredients, or you're consuming the classic American heavily grain-based diet. Look at the food pyramid, which no longer exists, and the very bottom is grains. Look at the new food plate, and about 50% of the plate is grains. The number one source of hidden sugars are the glutinous, dairy-like products that you consume. Most diabetics don't realize that the majority of their calories and carbohydrates is coming currently from things that are loaded with sugar in the first place. So they eat a lot of bread, and they eat a lot of grains, and they eat a lot of oats, and they consume a lot of dairy, milk and cheese and yogurt and things like that, thinking that it's healthy for them. What's even more interesting is that the protein found in dairy called casein has actually been shown to cause dysbiosis and damage to the intestines, which causes diabetes in the first place. This should be a huge awakening, in my opinion. Avoiding processed foods and sugary foods and drinks is just common sense. But most people aren't aware that eating lots of fruit also has a lot of sugar inside of it. So what we typically recommend is that someone who's wanting to drop their sugars quickly goes through a grainless, glutenless, oatless, riceless, dairyless diet and focuses on things like clean proteins, nuts and seeds, vegetables, not so much fruits, and the fatty plants. So we have things like, for example, olives and olive oils, avocados and avocado oils, coconuts and coconut oils. There is an entire diet laid out for you step by step by step in the Diabetes Heal Thyself ebook. So I see some people commenting on our channels, okay, well, is this good to eat? And what? Great, ready? Everything you need right here. The entire food list, what to avoid, what to focus on, how to change your diet in less than just, 4 days, and massively see your sugars drop. How do you get this ebook? Again, if you're just tuning in, 704-906-2094. If you've been tuning in, I'm looking at our Facebook screens. I'm looking at the YouTube screens. If you guys have been watching since the top of the hour and you haven't texted in yet, my challenge to you is pick up your phone and text it right now. 704-906-2094. The ebook will be sent straight to your email, and the webinar is automatically included for free. And if you don't want to text, just call the number. My call center, they're extremely friendly people. Name, phone number, have a nice day, and your email, and off you go. Okay, so could we start fasting to see our sugars drop fast? Yes. Can we change our diet and make sure we're avoiding the super high glycemic processed foods? What's the food list again we want to avoid? Grains, rice, oats, corn. And then we want to cut out all dairy, and we want to get rid of fruit. And is this forever? No. It's until your sugars start coming down and your body starts healing and you start getting good results. And then it's your decision. Do you sustain and maintain that for life? Because often what I find is people say, well, look, I'm doing great. I'm no longer diabetic. I dropped 4 medications. I lost 40 pounds. When can I go back to pizza and beer again? When you want it all to come back. So stay at the level of what gave you the results, and you will maintain those results for life. Oh, Dr. Ernst, does that mean I can never have bread ever again? No, it just means you can't have the breads you used to eat, and you need to start focusing on nut and seed breads. Again, I know you guys are like, well, how do I find out which ones to get? The ebook. How do I know which recipes I should follow? The ebook. How do I know how I'm supposed to know how to do this? The ebook. The ebook. How? Ebook. You guys get it? This is your answer. We spent hours upon hours writing this book, and we're giving it to you for free. Absolutely free. The number is 704-906-2094. Okay, we got about 15 minutes, and I saved the best for last. How do you now fix the gut? How do you get rid of the dysbiosis? How do you repair the intestines? There is a physician who's quite famous for coming up with what's called the 4R approach. He's one of our functional coaches. And it's real simple when you think about it. You have to remove all the crud that you've been putting in your intestines that's causing the damage in the first place. You have to get rid of the gluten and the dairy and the corn and the soy. And you got to ditch the sugars and the caffeines and the alcohols. Remove the damage. Number 2, you have to replace what you have not been giving it. And the number one thing that needs to be added, and I know this is going to sound strange, is enzymes. Listen, enzymes clean things up. They break down proteins. They break down. Think of them as like a mushroom, for example. Mushrooms are a fungus that grow on decomposing tissue, and they aid that decomposing process to clear whatever's there. So enzymes will clean the colon. They'll clean the intestines. They'll empty out the stomach. The number one enzyme that you need to start using is a digestive enzyme. Hydrochloric acid. Betaine hydrochloride is a great one. Papain, the various enzymes for all the stuff that's stuck in your gut, all the fats and the proteins and the cell tissues. Take a digestive enzyme, start cleaning out your intestines. We need to start to re-inoculate. So we have remove, we have replace, we have re-inoculate. Now, when we talk about inoculations, that's generally a phrase to mean give you some sort of a living entity. Okay, so we could give you bacteria. Now imagine this. You go to your doctor and they say, take an antibiotic. We're going to kill all the bacteria down and you're going to get well. You go to a holistic physician and they're like, no, we're going to give you a pill full of bacteria. I mean, you guys understand the mindset difference between this? For a medical doctor to say out loud, I'm going to give you bacteria and that's going to make you well, would be to them to violate their entire philosophy behind healthcare. To them, a sterile you is a healthy you. To them, an inoculated, vaccinated you is a healthy you. To them, a medicated you is a healthy you. If you were to come to your doctor and be like, hey doc, listen, I take 46 medications. I should be the healthiest person you know. They're going to be like, as long as your labs look good, then you are. And it's just the model. It's the philosophy. Good labs is good health to them. Vaccinated is protected to them. Non-bacterial, sterile is healthy to them. Yet, there are medical doctors who go, well, we're kind of seeing that's not true. The hygiene hypothesis was disproven. When you sterilize a human being, they're dead. So we go, well, maybe we shouldn't push so much. And antibiotic uses are starting to drop because people realize we created superbugs. We're causing damage. But here we are in the world of functional medicine, and we're like, no. You need to be eating bacteria. You need to be taking a bath in bacteria. You need to be swallowing bacteria. You need to be rolling around in bacteria, and they're going to help you to heal. Just think about how insane that is for the average person to even understand. Most people know probiotics are healthy, but listen, probiotics today, that's like taking a tissue and trying to wipe up 55 gallons of water spilled on the floor. Yes, you need probiotics, but the amount of repair that the majority person with diabetes needs exceeds what just an over-the-counter probiotic can do. Oh, and by the way, most over-the-counter probiotics, there may be 3 or 4 strains of lactobacillus. There are thousands upon thousands of strains of bacteria in your intestines, and unless you know which strains are overgrown and which strains are undergrown, you should only take the ones that are undergrown, and you should never, ever, ever just throw probiotics at someone and say, you're good now, you're healthy. There is something called monoculture overgrowth that can result from you taking the same probiotic day in and day out for life. Be extremely careful taking a probiotic and saying, I'm healthy, I took my probiotic today. How do we know if a probiotic is good? Well, they should be a vast array of bacteria. You should see more than just 3 or 4 by count. And I'm not talking the number of bacteria. You'll pick up a probiotic bottle, it'll say 46 billion. You'll pick up another one, 82 billion. It's not that the 82 is better because there's more. Flip them around and count how many different strains of bacteria. If I've got 3 strains at 82 billion, and I've got 70 strains at 40 billion, I'll take the 70 strain 40 billion every day over the 82 billion 3 strains. Man, I hope you guys get this. You've got so much that you need to learn. And unfortunately, the marketing today in healthcare, natural healthcare, has taken over because probiotic company A wants you to buy theirs, but probiotic company B wants you to buy theirs. So how do they compete with each other? Well, they have to show you we're better. Take us because we're bigger. And we get sucked into this lie. Oh my God, 250 billion probiotic. It's $98. That must be good for me because the 43 billion is only $12. It doesn't work like that, guys. So we remove, we replace, we re-inoculate, and here's the best part. We repair. And the neat thing about the repair is it happens by itself. Look, guys, your intestines only take 14 days to grow back. 2 weeks. But it's 2 weeks of removing, 2 weeks of replacing, 2 weeks of re-inoculating, and the repair happens by itself. Now, are there things you could use that would stimulate this repair? Yes. One of the most powerful gut rebuilding nutrients out there is glutamine. It's a very small white powder that you can stir into water. It's tasteless, and you drink it. It would be phenomenal if you did a 4-day glutamine fast, just drinking water with glutamine. Aloe vera does the same thing, and you have seen probably online people say, I did a 2-week aloe vera juice cleanse. Yeah, great. 14 days of aloe vera. Don't do it longer than that. There's negative side effects of taking aloe vera longer than 14 days. But if you did a glutamine aloe vera juice fast, man alive, you'd help to repair your intestines. What are some other things? Well, licorice, slippery elm bark, marshmallow root. These are herbs you can get, have been shown to help to clean out your gut. And the unique thing is with these ingredients, not only do you nourish the intestines, but you can actually repair the lining. Why glutamine is so great, if you listen to the term, is it glues the cells of your intestines back together. So leaky gut, dysbiosis, is having too many holes in your gut. So you drink glutamine and aloe vera juice, and the mucosa, the layer of protection, glues itself back together, and you maximize the gut healing fatty acids that anchor them. Here's what's unique. Slippery elm bark is called slippery for a reason. It creates a lubrication to the intestines that allows your stool to slide right through without sticking to the colon wall. Fun fact, did you know that just like your arteries can get clogged and plaqued, so can your intestines? I know this is going to sound disgusting, but I want you guys to be health seekers today. Go to Google and type in the word mucoid plaque, M-U-C-C-O-I-D plaque. Just like you would type in arterial plaque and you'd see these photos of cholesterol and these nasty, things showing blockage of arteries and, heart disease. Well, guess what? A mucoid plaque is the same thing just inside your intestines, but it's made out of mucus and undigested proteins and cell tissues and bacteria, and it can plaque your colon just like your arteries of your heart. There is a high likelihood you're walking around with a mucoid plaque right now and you never knew about it. How do you learn more about what a mucoid plaque is? Download the ebook. How do you learn how to get them out of your gut? Download the ebook. How do you learn the diet that I just talked about and have recipes to support it? Download the ebook. How do you heal yourself? Download the ebook and follow the protocols and the steps. They're free. And make sure you join us for the webinar that's on the 17th of September, because what I'm going to do, if you're willing, is I'm going to come right through that camera onto your computer screen. I'll wave right at you and say, how can I help? Absolutely free. 704-906-2094 grabs the ebook for you, grabs the webinar registration for you, grabs your health back so you can heal yourself, but you have to take the action. See, that's the most amazing thing about this. You have to want this. But you know what's funny? Everybody I talk to says, yeah, Dr. Ernst, I want to be healthy. I just don't know what I need to do. Pick up the phone. That's what you should do. 704-906-2094. Call it. Text your name and your email. But Dr. Ernst, I don't know what I'm doing. You're going to get the ebook and read it. Well, how long is that going to take me? Well, maybe 12 minutes. It's about 17 pages long. It's full of information and links and all kinds of stuff that'll take you to places that'll help you to learn. And then really what you should do is carve out Saturday the 17th. Hour and a half of your time is all it takes for you to take the steps to become your own doctor and heal yourself from this thing called diabetes, from this thing called fatigue, from this thing called abnormal labs and a doctor who's angry and frustrated at you because your body isn't healing the way they wanted it to because you're taking medications, managing a condition instead of reversing it. The power of your health is within your hands. You just need to take action. 704-906-2094. That's the call line for the Ask Dr. Ernst show. And that's the text line. And all you got to do is send it. And I see people are doing it right now. And that's the most amazing thing ever because they're getting the answers that you might need for your health. So let's not get left out. Okay, so in summary, as we've got only a couple minutes left, dysbiosis is a medical term for an inappropriate relationship to the bacteria in your intestines, which is actually more about you than about you are of you. We talked about that. There's more bacteria in you than there is you by cell counts. You're more bacteria than human. Sorry to have to tell you this. Number 2, this condition called dysbiosis leads to a medical condition called increased intestinal permeability or leaky gut. And the challenge is if you're type 2 diabetic, it means your gut's leaking. We also learned that that's what's causing your diabetes, but unfortunately the elevation in your blood sugars, the diabetes itself, is then making the dysbiosis worse. So it's a vicious cycle that you cannot get out of with medications. We talked about how metformin, the most common drug used for diabetes, actually makes you more dysbiotic and damages your intestines. We talked about how there's research showing the only reason metformin works is if you have a healthy bacteria. We discussed the links between your diet and the ability for you to repair your intestines and how the fastest way you can drop your sugars is to fast. Then we talked about changing your diet. Then we talked about the fact that you can repair your intestines with the 4R process. Remove the stress, replace the nutrients you didn't get, re-inoculate your colon with the right kinds of bacteria, and let it repair by itself. We discussed that it only takes 14 days. A bone takes 7 weeks. The intestines need 14 days. 2 weeks, guys, is all it takes for you to seal your gut. And in those 2 weeks, your sugars can come straight down. And if you stick with the routines and you hold it for 90 days, your A1C will drop. Now, the challenge is your doctor's going to say, oh, it looks like the medications are working. And you get to say, hey, doc, I stopped those after I listened to this doctor online and on the radio show. And he took me through this diabetic program and even showed me the tests to do. And he even taught me how to read the tests. And he gave me a specific diet that helped to lower my pressure and my blood sugar, my cholesterol, and my triglycerides. And he even actually showed me how to heal myself. And by the way, now that I did this, technically I'm my own doctor. And so, doctor, I'd like you to take me off my medications, please. Guys, that's how it works. We don't take people off drugs. You take yourself off of them when you're healing by yourself. If I took someone's diabetic medications, I would crash. So we got to get you to where you crash naturally by yourself, and you have to then therefore stop the medication. Man alive, I hope you see this. Does dysbiosis cause diabetes? Yes. Last week, we talked about how toxins cause diabetes. Remember that toxin-induced insulin resistance? So you got to find out if you're toxic. The week before, we talked about nerve-induced diabetes. Do you have vagal nerve or splanchnic nerve damage? If you missed that episode, holy cow, you better head on over to iTunes, type in Ask Dr. Ernst, and download our podcast. Thank you so much for allowing me into your house today. I know we were a little delayed. The football game, it happens, but we still come at you. Don't forget to tune in every Saturday right here on Fox Sports Charlotte for the Ask Dr. Ernst show. And this is your last chance right now to grab this ebook for free. Once we finish out our show today, guys, the 17th is right around the corner. This book goes poof. And the only way to get it is to connect now. 704-906-2094. The number again, 704-906-2094. One last second. I have 15 seconds. 704-906-2094. Hey, thanks for tuning in. My name is Dr. Aaron Ernst. This is the Ask Dr. Ernst Show live on Fox Sports Charlotte, 94.7 FM. I will see you guys next Saturday at 12 noon. Be